Imagine waking up in Madrid on a radiant April morning, only to find the entire city plunged into an eerie, unnatural darkness. The familiar hum of daily life vanishes. Shopkeepers in the bustling markets frantically close their shutters, worried about spoiled goods and lost revenue. Office workers, usually briskly pacing through Puerta del Sol, stand bewildered as metro stations grind to a halt and digital clocks blink uselessly. The city's heartbeat falters. For millions of Spaniards, this was not just a minor inconvenience. It was a stark reminder of how dependent we are on reliable electricity. But the blackout that swept across Spain on that fateful April day in 2025 was far from an ordinary outage. It became a wake-up call for Europe, raising a profound and urgent question. Is our green energy revolution racing ahead of the very infrastructure meant to support it? Spain, in recent years, has been celebrated as a trailblazer in the European clean energy transition. The country's journey from fossil fuel dependency to solar superpower has been nothing short of extraordinary. In just the past year, Spain installed nearly 9 gigawatts of solar photovoltaic capacity, transforming the abundant Mediterranean sunshine into what is now the cheapest source of electricity in the region. Rooftops in Valencia, fields outside Seville, and industrial zones near Barcelona gleam with the blue shimmer of solar panels, a testament to both technological progress and national ambition. Solar energy is no longer a fringe experiment in Spain. It is mainstream, integral to the nation's energy mix, and its growth is nothing short of exponential. According to the International Energy Agency, solar is on track to become the world's largest source of electricity by the year 2033. The stakes could not be higher. We are talking about the energy security of tens of millions of people, the direction of investments worth hundreds of billions of euros, and the very race to slash greenhouse gas emissions by more than half before the close of this decade. Spain has pledged to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by the year 2030, compared to levels recorded in 1990, a target that commands both respect and scrutiny. Yet, as sunlight is harvested on a massive scale, the machinery working behind the scenes, the nation's electrical grid, has not kept pace. This is where Spain's story becomes a cautionary tale. Despite the solar boom, Spain ranked only 14th in Europe for new battery energy storage installation in 2023, adding fewer than 250 megawatt-hours. Meanwhile, countries like Germany and Italy surged far ahead, embracing both utility-scale and distributed battery solutions. This gap in grid resilience and storage is the invisible Achilles heel of Spain's energy revolution. The consequences of this shortfall became painfully clear on that April morning. The government's investigation revealed a cascade of failures. Voltage control systems buckled, grid configuration proved inadequate, and the generation response was simply too sluggish. Importantly, the solar panels themselves were not to blame. The technology to prevent such a disaster already exists. Grid-forming inverters, advanced voltage regulators, and large-scale batteries could have stabilized the system. But Spanish regulations, slow to evolve, kept these advanced solutions on the sidelines. In the words of one industry expert, it was like buying a Ferrari but never upgrading the brakes, speed without control. Luis Medina Rivas, the chief executive officer of Tether, puts it bluntly. If we do not act now, grid instability could cost European Union economies up to 135 billion euros every single year by the year 2050. And Giles Dixon, the chief executive officer of Wind Europe, drives the point home. Renewables are not the problem. The real issue is that we are not investing fast enough in grid resilience and smart infrastructure. To fully grasp the magnitude of the challenge, it helps to understand the complexities of running a modern electricity grid. Unlike the predictable, steady output of coal or gas plants, solar and wind power are variable. The sun does not always shine, the wind does not always blow. This variability requires sophisticated management, balancing supply and demand every second of every day, storing excess energy for cloudy or windless periods, and ensuring voltage and frequency stability across thousands of kilometers of transmission lines. Spain's blackout exposed the danger of letting renewable generation outpace grid modernization. Voltage sagged, frequency wobbled, and automated safety systems cut off power to prevent catastrophic damage. The ripple effects were staggering. Factories suspended production, refrigerated goods spoiled in supermarkets, and hospitals switched to emergency generators. The economic losses tallied in the hundreds of millions of euros, but the psychological impact, shaken trust in the reliability of clean energy, may have been even greater. So, How did Spain get here? The country's aggressive push for solar was driven by a potent mix of policy incentives, falling technology costs, and a national desire to break free from imported fossil fuels. But as solar panels proliferated, investment in grid resilience lagged. According to Walburga Hemmetsberger of Solar Power Europe, battery storage is not just a technical fix, it is a strategic asset for European energy security and competitiveness. The regulatory framework in Spain failed to keep up with the pace of innovation. Current rules did not require renewable energy plants exceeding 10 megawatts to provide synthetic inertia, a crucial capability that helps stabilize grid frequency when traditional spinning turbines are replaced by inverter-based resources like solar and wind. Countries at the cutting edge, such as Denmark and Australia, have already mandated such requirements, recognizing that the future grid must be both clean and resilient. The situation is evolving rapidly. Even before the blackout, Spain's energy market was shifting. 2025 was already expected to be a turning point, with Spain projected to break into Europe's top 5 markets for new battery capacity. Utility-scale battery projects, once stalled by regulatory bottlenecks, are now being revived and accelerated. The Spanish government, stung by the blackout and the public's outcry, has responded with a wave of new policies and funding initiatives. To address the crisis, Spain has earmarked over €5 billion for smart grid deployment by the year 2027. This is not just about laying new wires, it means building a digital nervous system for the nation's energy network. Smart grids use sensors, automation, and artificial intelligence to anticipate problems, route electricity efficiently, and integrate renewables seamlessly. The European Commission has also stepped in, approving €3 billion from recovery and resilience funds specifically for smart grid and energy storage projects across Spain. In June of 2025, Spain launched a tender worth €1.2 billion aimed at driving large-scale battery storage. The goal is ambitious, to add 600 megawatts of new capacity by the end of 2028. Energy giants such as Iberdrola are investing another €500 million in pumped hydro storage, a proven technology that acts like a giant battery by moving water uphill during periods of excess generation and releasing it to generate electricity when needed. By the year 2030, these projects could boost Spain's long-duration storage capacity by 300 megawatts. But the transformation is not just about hardware. Software and new business models are playing a vital role. Red Eléctrica de España, the national grid operator, is piloting blockchain-based platforms for peer-to-peer energy trading. Imagine a future where you can sell excess solar power directly to your neighbor, turning every rooftop into a miniature power plant and every citizen into an energy entrepreneur. Startups like Greenflux have secured millions of euros in venture funding to develop artificial intelligence-powered grid management solutions, promising to detect and respond to problems faster than any human operator could. Spain's approach is a multi-pronged one, upgrading the physical grid, modernizing regulations, and fostering a culture of innovation. The government has mandated that all new renewable plants above 10 megawatts provide synthetic inertia, following the lead of countries that have successfully integrated high shares of renewables. New rules are being drafted to encourage investment in fast-response batteries, demand-side management, and flexible market mechanisms that reward participants for helping to balance the grid. Despite this surge of investment and innovation, the risks are far from gone. Spain's electricity demand is projected to climb by 2.5% every year until at least the year 2030. This steady growth is driven by electrification, more electric cars, heat pumps, and digital devices entering homes and businesses. If grid upgrades lag behind this rising demand, the potential for further instability remains high. Experts warn that grid failures across Europe could cost the economy up to €135 billion each year by the middle of the century if urgent action is not taken. The consequences of inaction are sobering. Picture a future where blackouts become more frequent, undermining confidence in the clean energy transition. Factories slow down, hospitals face repeated emergencies, and citizens lose trust in policymakers' promises. Investors, wary of instability, might divert capital to more predictable markets, stalling the growth of renewables and delaying the phasing out of fossil fuels. The economic, social, and environmental costs would be immense. Yet, there is tremendous opportunity as well. A recent study shows that grid-forming inverters alone could cut frequency disruptions by as much as half in scenarios where renewables dominate the grid. If Spain succeeds in deploying these technologies at scale, it could become a living laboratory for the world. a place where solar and wind not only provide the bulk of electricity, but do so reliably, affordably, and securely. Spain's lessons would echo far beyond its borders, informing energy policy from California to China. Let us consider some historical parallels. Germany, for instance, faced similar challenges a decade ago during its Energiewende, or energy transition. Rapid wind and solar deployment led to grid instability and occasional price spikes, but focused investment in grid reinforcement, robust storage, and regulatory innovation ultimately stabilized the system. Australia, another pioneer, witnessed blackouts in South Australia when wind generation soared, but recovered by mandating grid-forming inverters and investing heavily in the world's largest battery projects. These examples underscore a crucial point. The transition to clean energy is not a straight path, but those who adapt quickly are rewarded with energy security and economic leadership. So, what does the future hold for Spain's ambitious energy revolution? The stakes are enormous. On one hand, Spain stands on the cusp of becoming Europe's poster child for a successful, resilient, clean energy transition, if it can deliver on its promises and implement upgrades in time. On the other hand, a failure to modernize could trap the nation in a cycle of costly disruptions, missed climate targets, and dashed expectations. Right now, the government's commitment is clear. Over €5 billion are allocated for smart grid projects through the year 2027, and political will is running high. New market rules are being drafted to reward flexibility, and the regulatory landscape is shifting to support rapid innovation. The European Union's approval of €3 billion in recovery funds gives Spain a further boost, bringing in additional resources for storage, digitalization, and cross-border interconnections. The private sector is equally mobilized. Utilities like Iberdrola and Endesa are pouring hundreds of millions into advanced storage, digital grid controls, and renewables integration. Startups and tech companies are raising capital to develop artificial intelligence-powered solutions for grid management, forecasting, and energy trading. The startup Greenflux, for example, recently closed an €8 million Series A funding round to accelerate artificial intelligence-driven grid management research. These investments are creating a robust ecosystem for clean energy innovation, with Spain emerging as a hub for solutions that could soon be exported around the globe. But money alone will not solve the challenge. Technology must be deployed intelligently, and regulations must anticipate rather than react to crises. Policymakers are now mandating synthetic inertia for all large renewable plants, enforcing stricter standards for voltage and frequency stability, and encouraging utilities to pilot new technologies like blockchain for decentralized energy markets. The lessons learned from April's blackout are being translated into concrete action, and not a moment too soon. What does all this mean for ordinary citizens? The energy transition is not just a story about governments and corporations. As more homes install rooftop solar panels and smart batteries, consumers are becoming active participants in the grid. Smart home devices can shift usage to times when renewable power is abundant, reducing strain on the system and saving money. Local storage and participation in peer-to-peer energy markets, enabled by blockchain technology, are turning consumers into prosumers who both use and produce electricity. In the near future, it may become commonplace for neighbors to trade excess solar power directly, creating vibrant local energy economies and unlocking new streams of income for families and small businesses. For investors and entrepreneurs, Spain's evolving energy landscape is brimming with opportunity. The country's ambitious targets and generous incentives are creating fertile ground for startups specializing in battery systems, grid software, and energy management. Companies that can deliver reliable, flexible, and scalable solutions will find a receptive market not only in Spain, but throughout the European Union. Venture capital is flowing into the sector, and Spain's energy innovation hubs are attracting talent from across the continent. Of course, the road ahead is not without obstacles. The integration of renewables at scale requires careful coordination among grid operators, policymakers, technology providers, and consumers. Cybersecurity becomes a critical concern as digital systems proliferate. The skills gap in the energy workforce must be addressed through training and education, ensuring that the next generation of engineers and technicians is ready to manage a smarter, more complex grid. Scenario analysis by leading research groups outlines several possible futures for Spain. In the most optimistic vision, aggressive investment and streamlined regulation transform Spain into a model of renewable integration, with a stable, resilient grid supporting rapid decarbonization. In a less favorable scenario, continued delays in grid modernization lead to recurring instability, blackouts, and a slowdown in renewable deployment, with significant economic repercussions. A hybrid scenario is also possible, where incremental improvements are made but vulnerability persists, leading to uneven progress and pockets of instability. The urgency is real. As Pepe Zaforteza of Pexapark notes, adaptive policies are essential to improving system robustness. The window for action is narrow, but the rewards for success are immense. Marcus Lee, an analyst at A-Invest, points out that the Spain and Portugal blackout of April 28, 2025, was a stark warning. We must prioritize resilient energy infrastructure if we want to avoid repeating these failures. The good news is that the fixes are ready. Grid-forming inverters, large-scale batteries, smart grids, and artificial intelligence-driven management systems are mature technologies, proven in markets around the world. The challenge is one of implementation, aligning policy, investment, and innovation to build a 21st-century grid that is both green and reliable. So, will Spain's multi-billion-euro push be enough to stabilize its energy system and prevent future blackouts? The answer today is cautiously optimistic. Recent investments and regulatory changes are closing critical gaps in storage and grid flexibility that triggered last April's chaos. The coming years will determine whether Spain cements its role as Europe's clean energy leader or slips back into a cycle of crisis and catch-up. To quote Giles Dixon of Wind Europe once more, "The blackout was not a renewables problem, it was a resilience problem. The fixes are ready, now it is a question of delivery." And here is a little-known but fascinating fact. Spain's new smart grid pilots could soon allow ordinary households to sell excess solar power directly to their neighbors using blockchain, effectively turning everyday citizens into miniature power companies. This is not science fiction. It is already being tested in communities from Catalonia to Andalusia, and it could revolutionize how we think about energy ownership and consumption. The energy transitions is not a straight line. There will be setbacks, surprises, and detours. But Spain's experience offers a powerful lesson for the world. Building the future of energy means more than adding solar panels and wind turbines. It means connecting, coordinating, and preparing for a world where clean power is the rule, not the exception. It means investing not just in generation, but in the smart grids, storage, and digital tools that keep the lights on when the sun does not shine and the wind does not blow. As the world watches Spain's next moves, one thing is clear: the global race for clean, reliable energy is accelerating. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, to understand the breakthroughs, the setbacks, and the innovations shaping tomorrow's power systems, subscribe to our channel and join our community. Together, we will track the energy revolution, one that is not just about electrons.